There's a room in Berlin where Schopenhauer's personal letters are kept, and among them is one that historians tried to bury for decades. In it, he writes to a friend about marriage, and his words are so brutally honest, so dangerously clear, that they challenge everything modern society has built its entire relationship industry upon. He wrote, "Marrying means to halve your rights and double your duties." But that's not the disturbing part. The disturbing part is what he wrote next, a single line that explains why the greatest minds in history viewed marriage not as completion, but as intellectual suicide. And I'm going to tell you what that line says. But first you need to understand why this truth has been systematically hidden from you. You see, there's a pattern woven through history that nobody talks about. The philosophers who changed how we think, the scientists who revolutionized our world, the artists who created works that outlived empires, they all shared one thing that modern culture has convinced you is a deficiency, a flaw, something to be ashamed of and quickly fixed. But what if I told you that this very thing they avoided wasn't a weakness but the ultimate form of strength? What if the path they're selling you, the one with the white dress and the joint bank account and the compromised dreams, isn't leading to fulfillment but to a carefully constructed cage? Schopenhauer spent 50 years studying human nature with surgical precision, and he discovered something that will make you question everything you've been told about what makes a complete life. He found that marriage operates on a principle of nature that has nothing to do with your happiness and everything to do with the species perpetuating itself, using your desires as puppet strings. Nature doesn't care if you're fulfilled, only if you reproduce. And marriage, he argued, is the institution designed to ensure you sacrifice your individual potential on the altar of biological imperative. The man who wrote this died surrounded by his books, his poodle, and a lifetime of thoughts that most married men never have time to think because they're too busy managing someone else's emotional weather. Was he lonely? Society desperately needs you to believe he was. Because if he wasn't, if he was actually liberated, actually powerful, actually complete, then everything they've taught you about needing another person falls apart. And that's exactly what happened. Let me ask you something that will haunt you tonight. When was the last time you made a decision that was purely yours, not influenced by what a partner might think, not filtered through someone else's fears or limitations, not negotiated or compromised, just entirely, audaciously, dangerously yours? Most men can't remember because most men stopped being individuals the moment they became halves of couples. And here's what Schopenhauer understood that modern men have forgotten. Intelligence, real intelligence, the kind that pierces through comfortable illusions and sees reality's actual structure. This intelligence is fundamentally incompatible with the intellectual compromises marriage demands. You cannot simultaneously pursue truth wherever it leads and maintain harmony with someone who needs certain truths to remain unspoken. You cannot dedicate yourself to understanding existence's deepest questions while also dedicating yourself to processing another person's daily emotional fluctuations. The bandwidth isn't there. The mental energy is finite. And marriage, by its very nature, redirects that energy away from vertical growth and toward horizontal maintenance. By the way, I'm curious, what city are you watching this from right now? Drop your location in the comments because I want to see how far this message is reaching. How many men around the world are ready to hear what philosophy has been trying to tell us for centuries? Think about this carefully. Every great philosophical work was written by a man with uninterrupted time to think. Every scientific breakthrough came from minds that could obsess over problems for days without someone asking where they've been. Every masterpiece emerged from Solitude's laboratory, where attention isn't fractured, focus isn't negotiated, and creative energy flows toward chosen purposes instead of being drained by domestic obligations. Schopenhauer would spend entire mornings writing, afternoons walking alone with his thoughts, evenings reading in languages most people don't even know exist. His routine was precise, almost ritualistic, not because he was antisocial, but because he understood something profound about how great work actually happens. It doesn't happen in the margins of relationship maintenance. It doesn't happen when your deepest thinking is constantly interrupted by someone needing emotional validation. It happens when a man belongs entirely to himself and can therefore give himself entirely to work that matters. But here's where it gets really interesting. Marriage isn't just a time management issue. It's a consciousness issue. The married man experiences reality through a dual lens, constantly translating his authentic responses through the filter of how it will affect his partner. He can't simply react to life. He has to manage reactions, moderate responses, suppress insights that might create conflict. This creates a fundamental split in consciousness. Part of him is experiencing life. Another part is monitoring that experience for relationship implications. The wise man, the man Schopenhauer describes, experiences reality directly. His consciousness is unified, undivided, flowing toward understanding without being split by partnership politics. When he encounters a difficult truth, he doesn't have to wonder how to explain it to someone who needs comfortable illusions to feel secure. When inspiration strikes at 3 in the morning, he doesn't have to negotiate the validity of following it with someone whose sleep he's disturbing. When his path requires solitude, intensity, obsessive focus, he doesn't have to justify this to someone interpreting his need for space as personal rejection. The married philosopher faces an impossible equation. Philosophy demands you question everything, including and especially the beliefs that make life comfortable. But marriage often requires you to protect your partner from certain questions, certain truths, certain realities that might destabilize the relationship's foundation. So what does he do? He either stops asking dangerous questions, or he asks them and hides his conclusions, or he pursues truth and watches his marriage deteriorate under the weight of intellectual honesty. Schopenhauer chose a fourth option: never enter the equation at all. And from that choice came insights into human nature so profound we're still unpacking them 2 centuries later. He wrote about the will, the blind force driving all existence, pushing organisms toward reproduction regardless of individual happiness. He saw that romantic love, the thing everyone thinks makes them special and unique, is actually nature's mechanism for ensuring genetic continuation. Your feelings of destiny and completion when you meet someone, that's not cosmic connection. That's biology manipulating your consciousness to achieve its reproductive goals. And once those goals are met, once children arrive or the possibility fades, the intensity disappears, leaving 2 people wondering why the magic died. It didn't die, it completed its function. You were never meant to be happy together, only reproductively compatible. The romantic narrative society sells you is a beautiful lie designed to make you comply with nature's agenda. Now I know what you're thinking, because this is what every man thinks when confronted with these ideas. This sounds lonely, isolated, cold, but that's because you've been conditioned to interpret solitude through the lens of loneliness. They're not the same thing. Loneliness is the desperate state of incomplete men who define themselves through others' eyes, who need external validation to feel real, who cannot sit with themselves because they haven't developed a self worth sitting with. Solitude is something completely different. Solitude is the natural habitat of men who have become so interesting to themselves that their own company is preferable to most social interaction. It's the workshop where original thoughts are built. It's the space where you discover who you are when nobody's watching, what you actually value when not performing for an audience, what you're truly capable of when no one's limiting your reach. Schopenhauer discovered that solitude isn't the absence of connection, but a different kind of connection, direct engagement with existence itself, without the distorting filter of another person's needs, mediating your experience of reality. The married man experiences life secondhand, constantly translating authentic responses into domestically acceptable versions. The solitary wise man experiences reality raw, unfiltered, undiluted by the need to make someone else comfortable with his truth. And here's what happens when you truly embrace this path. You stop performing. Most men don't realize they're performing until they stop. Every conversation calibrated for effect, every opinion moderated for palatability, every ambition scaled to fit someone else's understanding of what's possible. The performance becomes so natural you forget you're doing it. But the man in solitude, he rediscovers his authentic responses. He laughs at things that are actually funny to him, not things he should find funny. He pursues interests that genuinely fascinate him, not hobbies that make him seem well-rounded. He thinks thoughts all the way through to their logical conclusions without stopping at the point where they become relationship-threatening. This authenticity creates a power that married men can only envy. It's the power of complete self-alignment, where what you think, say, and do all point in the same direction, because there's no one to perform for, no one to placate, no one whose approval you need to maintain. Schopenhauer argued that genius requires a certain kind of madness, a willingness to follow ideas into territories where normal people refuse to go. But marriage is fundamentally about normalcy, stability, predictability. It's about building a life that makes sense to observers, that follows recognizable patterns, that doesn't make family members worry. Genius can't flourish in that environment because genius by definition means thinking thoughts no one else has thought, making connections others can't see, pursuing insights that look like insanity until they revolutionize understanding. The wise man gives himself permission to be misunderstood because he's not trying to make his life legible to others. He's trying to make it true to the deepest currents of his own nature, and those currents often lead places that partnership cannot follow. Not because partnership is weak, but because partnership requires two people to agree on direction, and the directions that change everything are usually ones only a single consciousness can perceive and pursue. Think about Kant, another philosopher who never married, who lived such a precisely scheduled life that neighbors set their watches by his daily walks. Critics called him mechanical, robotic, incapable of passion. But Kant was actually burning with passion, just not for another person. He was passionate about understanding the structure of human consciousness itself, about mapping the boundaries between what we can know and what we can only believe, about building philosophical frameworks that would outlast empires. That passion required every ounce of mental energy he possessed. There was nothing left over for the emotional labor marriage demands, and he knew it. The Critique of Pure Reason, one of philosophy's most important works, wasn't written in the margins of domestic life. It emerged from years of uninterrupted thinking, from a mind belonging entirely to itself, from attention that could focus on abstract problems for months without being called back to immediate relational concerns. Could a married man have written it? Theoretically, yes. Practically, no. Because the married man's consciousness is always partially occupied with partnership maintenance, even when he's not actively engaged in it. Part of his mind is wondering what mood she'll be in when he gets home, whether he's been working too much, if he's been emotionally present enough, whether his focus on his work is being interpreted as neglect. These aren't trivial distractions. They're consciousness itself being fragmented. And fragmented consciousness cannot achieve the depth required for work that changes how humanity thinks. Now here's what Schopenhauer wrote in that letter I mentioned, the line they don't want you to read. He said, "To marry means to do everything possible to become an object of disgust to each other." Brutal, right? But he wasn't being cynical. He was being observational. He watched countless marriages around him follow the same pattern. Initial passion driven by biological imperative, gradual revelation of fundamental incompatibilities, slow descent into either open conflict or quiet resentment, both parties wondering how the person who once seemed perfect became someone they can barely tolerate. And he realized this isn't a bug in marriage, it's a feature. Marriage forces unprecedented intimacy between two people who are fundamentally separate consciousnesses with different needs, different rhythms, different ways of processing reality. That intimacy inevitably reveals all the ways you're incompatible, all the habits that annoy, all the needs that conflict. And then you have two choices: suppress your authentic self to maintain harmony, or express your authentic self and watch harmony dissolve. Either way, you lose. The suppressed self breeds resentment, the expressed self breeds conflict. Schopenhauer saw this and asked a question most men are too afraid to ask. What if the answer isn't finding the right person, or learning better communication, or working harder on the relationship? What if the answer is recognizing that marriage itself, as an institution, is fundamentally opposed to the kind of self-development that creates wisdom, power, and lasting achievement? The wise man doesn't avoid marriage because he can't find anyone good enough. He avoids it because he's found something better: complete ownership of his own existence. He's discovered that the cost of partnership isn't just money or time, it's sovereignty. It's the right to wake up and decide what matters today without consulting anyone. It's the freedom to pursue ideas that might take years to bear fruit without someone questioning the investment. It's the power to structure your entire life around your deepest values without compromising them for someone else's comfort. This sovereignty is what built everything worth building in human history. Every book that changed minds was written by someone who could choose writing over relationship maintenance. Every discovery that advanced science came from someone who could obsess over problems instead of managing someone else's emotions. Every work of art that outlasted its creator emerged from someone who loved creation more than companionship. And that's the real secret they don't want you to know. The greatest human achievements don't come from balanced, well-rounded people in healthy relationships. They come from obsessed individuals who gave everything to their work because they had everything to give. Marriage takes that everything and redirects it. Suddenly, you're not giving everything to your purpose, you're splitting it between your purpose and your partnership. And in that split, greatness dies. Not dramatically, but slowly, as ambitions scale down to fit available energy, as visions moderate to accommodate another person's fears, as potential quietly suffocates under the weight of domestic obligations. Schopenhauer observed that men of genius are nature's exceptions, individuals whose consciousness operates at frequencies most people can't perceive. These men experience reality with an intensity that would overwhelm ordinary minds. They see patterns others miss, make connections that seem impossible, pursue questions that lead into territories most people fear to explore. And this exceptional consciousness requires protection. It needs space to operate without interference, time to develop insights without interruption, freedom to follow thoughts wherever they lead without consideration for how it affects someone else's emotional state. Marriage destroys this protection. It demands that the exceptional man make himself comprehensible to someone operating at ordinary frequencies. It requires him to translate profound insights into domestically palatable language. It forces him to interrupt deep work to attend to immediate relational needs. And slowly, imperceptibly, his consciousness begins to operate at lower frequencies to maintain relationship harmony. The sharp edges that made him dangerous get filed down. The obsessive focus that drove breakthrough thinking gets fragmented. The willingness to pursue truth regardless of social cost gets moderated by partnership politics. He doesn't become a better version of himself through marriage. He becomes a domesticated version, safer, more predictable, less threatening to conventional wisdom. And the world loses what he might have created, what insights he might have uncovered, what understanding he might have achieved had he remained sovereign over his own consciousness. Think about Newton, who revolutionized physics and mathematics while living essentially as a monk. His contemporaries whispered about his celibacy, his isolation, his apparent inability to connect with others. But Newton wasn't incapable of connection. He was incapable of allowing connection to interfere with work that required total mental commitment. The laws of motion, calculus, gravitational theory, these didn't emerge from a balanced life with healthy relationships. They emerged from a mind so obsessed with understanding nature's fundamental principles that everything else became irrelevant. Could a married Newton have achieved the same breakthroughs? The question answers itself. The mental space required to reconceptualize how the universe operates doesn't exist in a consciousness divided between cosmic questions and domestic responsibilities. You need every neuron firing in the same direction, every hour available for contemplation, every ounce of energy directed toward problems that might take years to solve. Marriage makes this impossible not because marriage is bad, but because marriage serves different purposes than the production of world-changing insight. Schopenhauer also understood that wisdom requires confronting uncomfortable truths about human nature, truths that most people spend their lives avoiding. We're driven by blind will, he argued, by unconscious forces that use our consciousness as a tool for their own ends. Sexual desire isn't about love or connection, it's about genetic propagation. Romantic attachment isn't about finding your soulmate, it's about nature ensuring reproductive success. The feelings you think make you special and unique are actually universal biological mechanisms operating through your particular nervous system. These truths are devastating to romantic narratives. and marriage requires maintaining romantic narratives. You can't build a life with someone while simultaneously acknowledging that your attraction to them is just biology's way of ensuring genetic diversity. You can't maintain partnership harmony while recognizing that the intensity you felt initially was temporary neurochemical manipulation designed to get you to reproduce. So the married philosopher faces a choice: pursue these truths and undermine his marriage's foundation, or protect his marriage by refusing to think certain thoughts. Most choose the latter, and wisdom dies in that choice. The solitary philosopher has no such constraints. He can follow truth into the darkest corners of human nature, because he's not trying to protect anyone's illusions. He can acknowledge the ugliness beneath romantic love, because he's not depending on romantic love for life stability. He can see marriage as the compromise of sovereignty that it actually is, because he's not invested in believing it's something noble and transcendent. This intellectual freedom is what allowed Schopenhauer to develop insights that still challenge how we think about consciousness, will, suffering, and existence itself. His pessimism wasn't depression. It was clear-eyed recognition of reality without the distorting filter of wishful thinking. And that clarity, that willingness to see what's actually there rather than what we'd prefer to be there, only comes from a mind that belongs entirely to itself. You're standing at a crossroads right now, and you probably don't even realize it. Every day you don't commit to the path they're selling you is another day you remain dangerously free. Every moment you stay in this space of possibility is another moment you could become exactly who you're meant to be without anyone limiting that becoming. But the pressure is real, isn't it? Family asking when you're settling down, friends wondering what's wrong with you, society treating singleness like a problem to be solved rather than a choice to be honored. And that pressure will only increase because your freedom threatens their choices. Your existence as a sovereign individual is a mirror reflecting the compromises they've made, and they don't want to look into that mirror. So they'll call you lonely, incomplete, afraid of commitment. They need you to be deficient because your completeness challenges their dependency. Let them talk. While they're managing someone else's emotional weather, you're building empires from undivided attention. While they're compromising dreams for harmony's sake, you're pursuing visions only you can see. While they're becoming half of something, you're becoming entirely yourself. Schopenhauer knew that the path of wisdom is walked alone, not because wise men can't find companions, but because the destinations wisdom leads to are places most people refuse to go. The truths that matter most are the ones that shatter comfortable illusions. The insights that change everything are the ones that require abandoning what everyone else accepts as obvious. The understanding that creates real power is the kind that develops in solitude's laboratory, where attention is pure, focus is total, and consciousness belongs entirely to itself. Which path actually leads to wisdom? The one where your mind is yours to direct, where your time serves your purposes, where your energy flows toward work that sets your soul on fire, or the one where everything is negotiated, compromised, filtered through someone else's needs and fears and limitations? The answer has been clear for millennia, but each generation has to rediscover it for themselves. Now you know what Schopenhauer knew, what every philosopher who changed human thought understood. The question is, what you'll do with this knowledge. Write in the comments, sovereignty over everything. Those 3 words represent a complete philosophy, a total commitment to owning your existence without apology or compromise. They're your declaration that wisdom matters more than social approval, that your potential is worth more than partnership's comfortable cage, that you're done trading your sovereignty for someone else's validation. This community is built on men who understand that real power comes from complete self-ownership, who refuse to fragment their consciousness for relationship maintenance, who know that greatness requires the very solitude that society condemns. Drop those words and join the ranks of men who create legacies instead of compromises. Hit that subscribe button because you're part of something that goes deeper than relationship advice or self-help platitudes. You're accessing philosophical truths that have been systematically buried because they threaten the entire social structure, built on convincing you that you're incomplete without partnership. Give this video a like because every engagement tells the algorithm that these ideas deserve to reach more men who are ready to hear them. Men who are tired of performing, tired of compromising, tired of living at half capacity because the other half belongs to someone else. And here's what's coming next in the channel. Something that's going to take everything you've learned here and show you exactly what becomes possible when you stop splitting your energy and start directing it with laser focus toward purposes that actually matter. You think you understand your potential, but you've only seen it filtered through the lens of what's socially acceptable. What I'm revealing next breaks that filter completely and shows you the raw power of a consciousness that belongs entirely to itself. The men who understand these truths are the ones who change everything, and you're about to discover exactly how far you can go when nothing holds you back.